Hi, my name is Liyah, and I am a junior at the Miami Valley School. For a project for my APUSH history class, we had to create a video about any of the content from the first 3 units of David M. Kennedy and Elizabeth Cohen's American pageant, something that is seen throughout history up to present day's immigration. In Unit 1 of the American pageant, the original colonists were fleeing poverty, religious persecution, and other issues from the Old World by coming to the New World, meaning they were moving from Europe to America. Over the course of several decades, many other groups of people have come to America too. People in the 15th century coming to America were accepting of each other because there weren't many people that could even survive. Over time, when more immigrants came to America, they would form groups of those with similar interests, such as religious views or social status. When people group together, they create a mindset of the type of people they like to be around, but they also create a mindset of the type of people they don't like to be around. Thus, this was the birth of people not accepting of others in America. Fast forward to present day, and we're creating bands of immigrants from certain countries and building walls to keep people away. From a time where America was a safe haven for those fleeing conflict, to today where we're trying to keep people out instead, what has changed? How have our views on immigration changed? Let's compare the history in the book to an experiment I will conduct about present-day views on immigration. Everyone knows the little song, "In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue," where Columbus supposedly found America. And this meant Europeans found America. Obviously it must be for Europeans to live in. Therefore, when American Indians were found in America, they didn't belong. Because they weren't white, they didn't belong. The result, they were subjugated by the colonists, annihilated, and enslaved. Likewise, years later, when Africans were brought to America, they were immediately sold off as slaves to work on tobacco, rice, and indigo plantations. This meant their lives must have been trivial enough to put a price tag on. Even if people were white, if they were poor, they were probably small farmers in the backcountry at best, or indentured servants at worst. Basically, what all this means is if you weren't rich and white, you were looked down upon. So the rich white people were the only Americans. This hate on non-Americans has only grown. This surprised me because looking at tables in the American pageant, there were thousands of immigrants who came to America from around the world. So how did this idea that only whites were Americans come about? Well, if you look at this table, in 6 years, 260 immigrants came from countries other than Britain, Ireland, and Germany. At first, that seems like a lot, but actually that's a trivial number because that's out of 1,273,931 total immigrants. Therefore, the non-whites were only 17% of the immigrants. This makes them the minority. For example, if there are 100 animals in a room, and all of them are bears except 17 of them are random animals, each of different species, they are most likely to keep themselves while the bears interact with each other. That is because the bear recognizes a creature similar to them, and that creates a bond. The same does not apply to the singled out animals. This makes the bears stronger and makes it easier for the bears to overpower the other animals. While this is a strange analogy, it can be compared to the immigrants. People with white skin color bond and feel comfortable because, as it is said, there is power in numbers. When there isn't a group large enough to stop the majority, they set the views of society, and that is how the ignorant views of immigration were planted in society. All this led to prejudices against people of color. For example, Latinos must be criminals, or all Muslims are terrorists, or African Americans are part of gangs. These prejudices led to exclusions of groups of people, but there's a chance America is starting to change its views. You look at these images from a video called "Here's Everyone Who Has Immigrated to the United States Since 1820" by Metrocosm. In the 1820s, you have a lot of people coming from Europe, but there are also people coming from Canada and Mexico. By the 1870s, you have more European countries along with Russia and Australia. In the 1920s, most people from Canada, Mexico, and Europe are coming, but now some from Japan, Brazil, and the Middle East are starting to come too. Then suddenly, It's the 1960s, and you have some South Americans coming up, but something important to notice is that this is where a lot of Africans and Asians suddenly coming to America. In the 1980s, without any prior knowledge, you probably wouldn't guess any European country to have been the most dominant race in America. And still, in the 1990s, you have people coming from all over the world. This is probably due to technological advances that gave people the ability to make the trip over to America. Finally, enter the 2010s. You see a clear example of why America is considered a melting pot of cultures from around the world. But with this example, one would still be confused as to why the white, or more often said, Caucasians are the ones considered Americans and not everyone else. Then I realized that's what I'm reading in my textbook, but that doesn't necessarily apply to modern day. So I went around the community and asked people a simple question: what is your nationality? In the Merriam-Webster dictionary, a simple definition of the word nationality is one's membership to a particular nation. Often, this is confused with the word ethnicity. Ethnicity comes from the word ethnic, which in the Merriam-Webster dictionary means of or relating to large groups of people classed according to common racial, national, tribal, religious, linguistic, or cultural origin or background. When asked about his or her nationality, a person usually refers to his or her ethnicity. So I might say I'm Indian instead of American, but while I am of Indian descent, I'm an American citizen. So the correct answer for me would be American. I hypothesize that of American citizens, most Caucasians will refer to themselves as Americans, while most people of color will refer to themselves as someone from the country of their descent. Let's see how others classify themselves. This is what people of color said.
Indian?
India.
American?
American.
American. It's America.
Okay.
American.
Oh, China. American?
China.
American. American? Black? Okay. I'm Asian. Indian?
United States of America.
I'm African American.
I'm an American.
This is what Caucasians said.
America.
American. American. American.
American. German. American. American.
White. American.
United States. US.
In my experiment, I asked 30 people about their nationality. 18 of them were of color, while 12 of them were Caucasian. Of the 18 people of color, 10 of them correctly answered their nationality, and of the 12 Caucasians I asked, 11 of them correctly answered nationality. This shows that most Caucasians and people of color now both identify themselves as American. While my hypothesis was correct for Caucasians, it was not for people of color. Today, many people of color have been here for multiple generations and identify themselves as American too. Others are aware of who they are and know that just because their skin color isn't white, that doesn't mean they aren't American. I believe that while this country may have started as one with people who associate being American with being white, that idea has changed. Now the term American is becoming applicable to people of all color and backgrounds. There was a time your skin color would determine if you were a slave or you should be killed or if you should be taken advantage of. And now it seems that prejudice is changing. America is accepting its diversity for all people of color. Today we're painting a picture of America with more than just the color white. While the immigration to America might have started as something to be ashamed of, it has changed to something to be proud of.